There's no shortage of data in a lot of these companies. In fact, it's an issue that they have too much data and they don't know how to use it, or they don't know what to do with it. The reality was a majority of the companies that came through just wanted help with some of the day-to-day manual stuff that they're doing that seemed really inefficient or not a good use of time, and they were looking for ways to help them be more efficient. The amount of companies in like POC purgatory is amazing. They've got some really cool demos, or they've got some very small proof of value little projects, and they just don't know how to operationalize and actually deploy that in a production scenario.
David Bermingham, Director of AI at the AIM Centre, thank you very much for being a podcast guest today.
Thank you very much for having me. I'm really delighted to be here.
Yeah, and thanks again for driving up too. Did it take you long?
No, not too bad. No, in fairness, as I said, I came across last night from Carrick-on-Shannon, so very nice drive up last night, and took it easy yesterday evening, and ready to have a good, engaging chat with you.
Firstly, tell me a little about the AIM Centre. Tell me a little about what Director AI role does. Then we're going to talk a little bit about the 10-week accelerator and what's happening in that world.
Sure. Yeah, so the AIM Centre is Advancing Innovation in Manufacturing, is what the AIM stands for. So we've been very much focused on supporting SMEs in Ireland, manufacturing focused, but not solely manufacturing, and getting them on that journey, as you mentioned, right? So beyond the hype in terms of what people are hearing about or reading about, and trying to really say, okay, how can I use it? How can I apply it in my business, in my context? Because it's been, a lot of the talk is in very general terms that you hear if you go to these events, but people are now looking for, okay, give me the real hard use cases of how this actually can be implemented and applied, and where is the value in it. So our real, role is to enable them, but through information, by sort of clearing, making them understand some of the basic concepts even, right? Because it's become, a lot of the terms have become very ubiquitous to a lot of the people who work in the industry, but I think there's still a gap between that and what the people in day-to-day work understand AI to be, and for many that's ChatGPT, which obviously is a part of it, but by whole means not the whole story. So, explaining to them in very sort of understandable language that's not overwhelming or complicated about, the art of the possible. It's really opening their mind so they understand it, and then they can understand enough to say, okay, now I get the concepts, how could I apply that in my business? That's certainly one main focus area, and the accelerator is one avenue we're using to make that real, or make that a reality for companies.
And that's 10 weeks, 1 day a week. Tell me about the kind of people that are coming into this, and tell me about some of the topics that you cover within it.
Right. So we, as I said, we're predominantly manufacturing, but not solely. So we ran our first accelerator program in April, and we had a mixture of, traditional precision engineering manufacturing companies. We had some family-owned food manufacturing companies. So a really broad spectrum, frankly. And they were coming in, as I said, with the view to sort of understanding how they can apply it in their business. So that's the first half of the course. The first couple of weeks is orientated around the art of the possible, explaining that to them. Then we delve a little bit deeper into their business. So we spend some time with them before the course starts on what we call data discovery. So we go and we have sort of maybe a workshop session with the company to understand some of the bottlenecks in their businesses, right? And understand the data that they have. There's no shortage of data in a lot of these companies. In fact, it's an issue that they have too much data and they don't know how to use it, or they don't know what to do with it. So we look at their data, and then after we've sort of looked at their data and got some sort of rough idea of potential areas within their business we can look at, we then conduct a site visit. And we effectively, in a manufacturing context, we walk the manufacturing floor, we see how people operate day to day, how things run in real life. And effectively, we take all that information and then we try and give them back these use cases that are broken down by the specific areas within their business. So some of them have a focus on finance, some of them have a focus on operations and manufacturing, some of them have the focus on supply chain. And we help them, build out those use cases so they could say, okay, these are the areas of their business where the opportunities are. And then we help them effectively prioritize those by scaling them on a sort of a difficult to implement, easy to implement, difficult to implement, and cost, right? So they can see, okay, where should I start? And we're obviously, like everyone, advising everyone to start very small. So we pick a sort of a relatively simple use case to start with to get buy-in in the company, etc. But they now have a framework to say, here's where we're going to start now, here's where we hope to do next, and here's what the future we work on. And we try and stack those use cases in a meaningful way so they don't end up with a whole bunch of individual solutions that aren't really relative to each other, connected in a meaningful way.
Yeah.
And those use cases then give them the foundation to sort of go and start that journey in reality and do something real.
Yeah, because I think there's all these different kind of people at the moment where you've got these kind of maximalists who are just in it, using it, really focused around kind of the AI tools, productivity. You got some more kind of observers who are kind of observing, waiting and seeing. Then you got the super fan who's always talking about the hype, but then they actually don't know where to start, so don't start to apply it. So when you were kind of engaged with the different types of audiences, did you have to kind of redoctrine them in some ways in terms of the practicalities? Did you feel like you just had to kind of refresh them, reset them? Were you better off having someone who had very limited experience, or someone who was already doing it but probably doing it badly in terms of how they were using the tools, or maybe it's a mixture of them all?
Yeah, probably a bit of a mixture of all. There's certainly, I think, a bit of an issue for companies to understand the difference between the hype and the bubble and the reality of it, right? And I think that, for me, the way I describe it to others is really being aware of the distinction between the adopters and the creators. And when I talk about adopters in this context, I mean like the hyperscalers, the Microsoft, the Azures, the Googles, who are putting massive investment into the infrastructure, the AI infrastructure, and the arms race that's going on around that, and that's creating a lot of not noise, but it's creating a lot of news, right? If you
so much nerd drama out there, isn't there?
Yeah,
Between all the big hyperscalers. Everyone wants that piece. It feels like the gold rush of the 1800s now.
And it's. I mean, I think the biggest real sort of illustration of that I saw was last week when, Sam Altman made a comment about the AI bubble in an investor meeting, and the market flipped, right? And $1 trillion was wiped off the S&P 500 in one day. Because of three things happened, I think. They were saying, Sam Altman made a comment about, he also backed it up by saying the long term is still good, but from a investor's perspective, there is a bubble. Then I think Meta announced they're doing some restructuring in their AI division to downsize a little bit, and it's probably just a rationalization, I'm sure. And then MIT produced this report that basically said that 90% of companies are seeing nothing in terms of return.
Yeah.
And the market got wiped out $1 trillion in one day.
And
it's nuts.
It's funny you say that, because part of that is an awful lot of clickbait, because what he'd also said was, it was kind of like a flippant remark to go, it is kind of a bubble. But he then went on to justify all the different reasons. And then the MIT aspect, it was kind of like 95% aren't seeing the ROI. But then it went into all the examples of who wore, how they were generating, why it was such a good time to do it. So it's kind of like people are just working off this sentiment that they're not even taking the full nuanced information that they're working in. And unfortunately, there is no simple, say, AI success, AI failure. It's more nuanced.
Definitely.
Like the way, I suppose, kind of life at the moment. When you're speaking to people to go on the 10-week journey, what type of outcomes are they experiencing? Are they expecting? How do you manage expectations from the accelerator?
So it's interesting. Before we started, I thought people were going to begin with these really big ideas, right? Or these huge projects, sort of looking to do things, fully automated, end to end, big bang. And yes, there were a couple of the larger companies coming in with that mindset. But to be honest with you, the reality was a majority of the companies that came through just wanted help with some of the day-to-day manual stuff that they're doing that seemed really inefficient or not a good use of time, and they were looking for ways to help them be more efficient. And I think that's where I flip the conversation to say that all that talk about what's happening in the hyperscaler world is kind of irrelevant. The value conversation should be shifting around the adopters, right? How are you putting value into your organization through either improving your workflows, through either integrating it into your products or into your sort of back office systems, right? And that's where they're seeing value, that's where they're seeing return, and that's where they're saying, actually, this is a really great place to start. It's not particularly exciting in a tech perspective, but from a business value perspective, that's absolutely where their focus is. I mean, and that's team, like if I could map that team across the 10 companies that were on our first accelerator program, every single one of those were latched onto that and said, help me with these things. And they're the sort of things we worked on. I mean, I can talk about a few of those examples, but absolutely.
It'd be nice just to give me maybe a little bit more detail on the process mining piece or that kind of workflow piece of trying to figure out, well, why are we doing this task? Why is this a relevant use case? And then actually helping them to decide, maybe they need to go upstream to go on a better use case that probably give them a little bit more impact.
Absolutely. And that's kind of back to where the point about the stacking of the use cases, right? So yes, there are some point problems or solutions that we're working on. I mean, a couple of the examples would be, supply chain and stock optimization is a big focus for companies at the moment with everything that's happening in the global markets and with tariffs, etc. And the reality is a lot of companies are still doing a lot of that through manual spreadsheets, and they're putting data entry into one place and copying it to another, and they're using it for things like stock optimization or for order or quotation processing, and it's really inefficient. So what we're saying is, well, we're looking at, when we spend time with the company, we see it step by step how they're doing it. And then we sit down and we effectively design a more efficient workflow that removes all those manual steps, automates it as much as they can, so that people aren't spending time in their day doing all that manual data entry, running reports. That's all done automatically for them. They're seeing the output from it, so we're automatically connecting with ERP systems or any other internal systems they have, and solving that problem for them has been really impactful. And then we look, okay, we've kind of, let's say we've helped you with your stock optimization, we've given you better visibility. Now you sort of go up the chain or down the chain to optimize other parts of it, right?
And if people can underestimate that if you don't have visibility, you're turning down business. You're not competitive. You're not being efficient delivering what you currently have. Your people are stressed out of your head. And you don't even know what good looks like because you haven't measured it effectively.
Yeah. One company actually said, we are turning away business because we can't keep on top of things. So I don't know if I have the capacity to do this new order. I don't know if I have the stock to do it. I don't know what the lead time would be. They don't have, they don't have those tools at their fingertips. And the good news is, I guess, is because a lot of those businesses are growing, they're not in situations where they're looking for AI to help them downsize or to, they're looking for efficiencies to do more. They're looking for efficiencies to grow their business, to remove those things, to be able to take on new customers and new clients and give them the confidence to do that.
And that's the narrative I don't think is spoken about enough.
I don't hear it too much.
I'm not meeting many CEOs that say to me, I want to reduce and downsize my business. They're saying, I want to expand. I want to upskill, and I want to create better customer experiences. How do I use these tools to be more efficient? I want more of the pie.
Yeah.
Where the narrative on the job losses, redesign of work, I feel that's has to start to move away, because if you interview the leaders of these businesses, they want the productivity gains, but I suppose there's probably that disconnect then with actually upskilling their people afterwards. And I put a post on LinkedIn today to say, I came home for the holiday, I put my treadmill, rower, bench press, I just put it out, I got rid of it. And I said one of the reasons was I just kept walking by it and I was doing nothing.
Yeah.
And one of the reasons why I got rid of the treadmill was I never asked the guy to show me how to use it. I thought I'd figure it out,
Yeah.
but there was all these different buttons, and I just didn't go for it. So there was no initial high. There was no kind of hook to keep me on it. And sometimes I feel that if you're going to start to use these tools, or you're going to go on this AI journey, which particularly on the data transformation piece isn't particularly nice, you need some quick wins.
Definitely.
You need some quick endorphin kind of boost, serotonin hit to make you want to continue to go, because you know the challenges are going to be there, right? So we've all got those treadmills in our house, or the equivalent to that treadmill, but we need that training and upskilling to warrant to go on it. But I'm guessing having those key people, and I think you were saying beforehand that there's a few people from different teams sometimes come into the accelerator. So when they leave the accelerator, they're probably spreading into the organization from a few different parts, so it's not one point of failure.
That's exactly what you want, right? That's exactly what you want. And I think, just to your point, one of the precision engineering companies who were on the accelerator were looking to expand or broaden into aerospace, right? And a very highly regulated industry, but a huge opportunity for them. And they had roughly 7 to 10 day turnaround time from quotation, from a request for an order to a quotation and getting it in the books and getting it moving forward. And very simply, very shortly, using off-the-shelf tools like workflow tools like N8N and Zapier, we showed them how basically automate all of that. That's going to poll your inbox, find the orders, extract the relevant information from the attached PDFs, which were very technical documents, so it had to look for measurements and dimensions, etc., and then put that information into their stock management system so that they could process the order from them. But even that first step, taking a week out of it to actually go from request to quotation, that's transformed them in terms of their ability to take on new business. And we built that as a demonstrator. One other thing we do in the accelerator is, for each company, we pick one use case of their choice, and we do a very simple demonstrator. It's not even a proof of concept really yet. It's just to show them how easy or what's the possible with some of these tools, right? And frankly, their minds were blown. They really were like, you built this in like a day, and this is what I can do. Now, it's not something they can put into their business tomorrow, but it was really impactful in just sort of their minds going, okay, this is what we need.
And it's so helpful using that N8N, Zapier, Make to kind of show them how you can start to do this. Where sometimes those can start to crash a little bit, and then you have to kind of look to find out where it crashed and kind of figure that out. But I remember giving up on Zapier about a year ago because I was just finding it really complicated. But now, like even with Gumloop and stuff, it's becoming even simpler. So they're becoming really, really kind of streamlined. But I always look at using Claude or Lovable as just these quick demos that they can create, and they make it really simple for you to scale. But I suppose the next question becomes, taking it from that kind of science project to turn it into a scaling as your business kind of grows. That's not necessarily straightforward.
This is where I think this is the crux of it. The amount of companies in like POC purgatory is amazing. They've got some really cool demos, or they've got some very small proof of value little projects, and they just don't know how to operationalize and actually deploy that in a production scenario, right? And they need help with that, because the reality of this is that some of these SMEs in particular don't have big IT departments. They outsource a lot of this work to third parties, or they have one guy who kind of knows a bit of coding. But we actually take them through all of these low code and no code tools during the accelerator, just to sort of so they are aware of them and go and try them out. And like ChatGPT, it'll get you 60 or 70% of the way there in such a short period of time. And those things are really powerful. So those tools are amazing.
Yeah, they're brilliant. It's funny. So I did, my new me today did a 30-minute session in my local hotel, kind of training session with 5 or 6 other people. We did like little circuits. And one of the guy, his name's Brian, 2022, kind of in engineering college. I said to him, what did you do for the summer? He's like, I got an internship, working part-time here and doing that there. And where'd you get it? Investment fund, renewables, 30-person company. And I said, okay, what are you doing? He goes, I'm not doing engineering, I'm actually doing research. I was like, are you using any AI tools? Yes, I'm using them all. He listed them all to me. I said, interesting. He goes, well, they actually hired me because I told them I could use all the AI tools. So he was teaching them how to use the AI tools. But what he did is, what he explained to me was, they got a specialist that comes in,
Yep.
teaches them how to use Enterprise Copilot, Enterprise OpenAI, ChatGPT, how to use it, but then monitors how they're using it, comes back in and says, you're using it this way. Let's change the prompts. Let's put in connectors. Let's start to fix your documents. And he's like, the impact it had.
That's interesting. That's a really interesting way to go about it.
It blows my mind that only 5% of our listeners actually subscribe to the podcast. We've got one favour to ask. Please, can you subscribe to the podcast? If you like our content, you subscribing will make a huge difference to the guests that we can get on the show, and also be a voice for AI applied across Ireland, but doing it the right way. Now back to the show. What happens next with the accelerator, with the cohort? You keep in touch with them? What would you do with them?
So at the end of the accelerator, as I said, we give them a sort of a roadmap in terms of the, where they could start and how they would build on top of that. Interestingly enough, it's funny, two of the companies who were on the first cohort came back to us for other use cases that they had thought of after the accelerator. Not necessarily, it's funny how the accelerator got their juices flowing in terms of, maybe some of the simpler, smaller things they could do, but then they've come back and said, okay, we think now this, if we used AI to help us with this problem, that would be amazing. So we've started the conversation with those companies. The accelerator program for SMEs, any Enterprise Ireland clients, is 80% de minimis funding. So that's another thing to point out, that it's really
wonderful.
Like it's a low risk, low cost
it's incredible
introduction.
when you think about it.
It's
right?
for nothing,
like
right?
Literally incredible for what they're offering.
Yeah.
People need to know about this.
And then, so we're not at a scale yet where we can help companies really, build these applications at scale for deployment into their businesses yet. We do hope to be helping them with that next year through partnerships that we're working with other companies. But so what we are doing is we're helping them define those new use cases, but also then we would help them. We have now the capability to get them to a proof of value or proof of concept. So we much further than a demonstrator, something with actually really meaningful data that they can really put a bit of a measurement on, like you talked about. Or demonstrator, you can't really measure the value of that, but with a POC you kind of can. So trying to get them to
I think it's a crawl, walk, run, right?
Exactly.
And you need to kind of go on that. Talk to me about the AI studio. It's coming up. What's
this is really exciting. I mean, so from our perspective, part of our remit is to develop a national AI studio, which is really exciting. And I mean, the way I'm thinking of it is this is an immersive experience for customers that will come, or companies that will come, who will basically want to, visualize and feel and see AI in action, right? So we're in the process of building it out. We're expecting to be operational later this year. So we will have loads of different experiences orientated, one around a mini assembly line that we're working with cobots.ie actually to develop and build for us a bespoke mini assembly line. So again, around supply chain, everything from how you can use cobots and sensors to do quality analysis, to do predictive maintenance, to help with inventory tracking, down to packaging, down to labeling, etc., real end to end. So this is again opening their eyes to how automation is really making a huge difference in a manufacturing context. That's one, big area. And then the other sort of half of the AI studio is going to be focused on a number of different applications of AI in different contexts, right? So think of it in AI in finance or HR, but also other detailed use cases around manufacturing as well. And we're also hoping to have some local LLMs running in our environment as well, so people will actually get to see it and play with it. Effectively, ideally, what I'd love to have at the end of this is like a living lab where we will have, a team of our engineers working on building out some of these solutions in a way that can illustrate how it can be applied, and then helping companies with their specific use cases in implementing those generic use cases, if you know what I mean.
We also have the AI awards. We've got our AI manufacturing award this year, which we're really,
Yes,
really
first time.
excited about, and having AIM Centre supported or sponsored that. Tell us a little bit about that, and what are you most looking forward to with the applicants?
It's really just, again, getting, for us, we're building up this knowledge and real first-hand knowledge versus sort of reading about it or seeing about
Yeah.
it through examples that things that people have actually delivered on, right? So that to me is really powerful, because it helps us in terms of being able to communicate that to, so other people build awareness and understand the possibilities of it. But it's also exciting to see how the manufacturing world is evolving and transforming through, people's appetite to do things better and do things smarter and use their data, right?
Yeah, and it's wonderful because I remember last year we had Pfizer with their smart factory. Some of the work that they're doing was absolutely incredible. And you see from the use cases, when we start to bring them out there, people's confidence increases. They start to see it's done here from a national perspective. This is incredible for jobs, because you're going out to a lot of the large enterprises, the mothership, and saying, listen, we can do it here.
Yes.
There's a local ecosystem. We've got use cases that we can come and visit. And I always found that locally you could just tap into people and go, could I grab a coffee with you? Can I run through what we're looking to do? You've been trying to drive and scale that. So we've been really trying to look at to showcase that and really share that. And our aspiration is, when these finalists come in, is that we'll be able to bring them onto the podcast, get them to tell their story.
Brilliant.
And be able just to put that content out there, so people don't have to start to reinvent the wheel. They'll be able to kind of go to that next step. One thing we didn't talk about, but I think it's actually worth just looking at, is the cost, right? So we always think about
Yes.
scale changing, the opportunity now for more people, accessibility, people to use it. ChatGPT's got like close to 1 billion users, 700 million active users, but the cost has dropped like 95, 97% in an awful lot of cases. So things that were millions, were now hundreds of thousands, are now tens of thousands. How enticing is that for companies to go on that journey where previously they thought it was out of reach?
Yeah, I mean, I think kind of what I would call the democratization of access to AI infrastructure has been really encouraging. Obviously, a sign of that is the cost come down, because, I mean, I guess if you think of it in the comparison to cloud, that democratization doesn't kind of exist. You're kind of locked into a cloud provider. A lot of people feel locked into a cloud provider, and there's kind of 3 or 4 big ones that you kind of have to, most people are with, right? AI is not that scenario, right? We're seeing it, I would probably akin it to more, the value is to the actual adopter or the consumer of it. I guess more like the airline business, whereby it's not concentrated in 3 or 4 companies. We're now seeing a massive sort of situation where you can do this relatively cheap, either on the cloud or locally. And that gives companies, I guess, the confidence that they can stay on the journey, because I think a lot of them are afraid that, yes, it's sort of, you can get started quickly with a lot of the cloud stuff, but once you start to really use those tokens, it gets expensive very quickly. And I think companies don't understand those models. Maybe it's deliberately designed that way, but that gives them, they don't have any certainty then, and that makes them afraid of investing, because they don't have certainty in terms of how big this thing is going to get and how much it's going to cost them. Yeah. Whereas now, I think that problem is becoming a little bit better defined, and companies have a lot more certainty, and there are more options out there for them.
And it gives them more confidence, right?
Totally.
It gives them more confidence. The first thing the CFO is like, what's it going to cost us, right?
Yeah.
And you need to have that visibility, and that's becoming an awful lot more straightforward. Because a lot of the times when you're putting in these AI agents, people are like, yes, it's going to be a massive success. It's like, well, we know it's currently costing us X. What happens if it becomes really successful and our customers internally, externally love it? What does that cost us, right? You may want to turn off the plug. So
that's hard to calculate. Today at the moment, that is very hard to calculate.
Very difficult. So it's just, I suppose it's just like with these accelerators, you're explaining to people the rules of the road. You're explaining to people what it's really like there, and you're giving them more kind of agency and kind of breadth, to have more momentum to say, okay, now I know. and I'm kind of going into it less with kind of Bambi eyes or that Andrex puppy kind of going down the hallway.
Because a lot of them feel they're getting a sales pitch when they're talking to, let's say a consultancy company or a service provider. And there is a bit of that, and that's the way the world works. Absolutely. And that's business. But I certainly try and just make it as, here is the information, here are your options, look at them all, and then we can help you make a decision, but we won't tell you what to do.
Yeah. Exactly. So next steps for people to reach out, AI Studio at AIM Centre.
Correct.
That's a good point
as
well.
That's
the website's got an awful lot of information as well that people can go to. We're going to make sure to put that on the show notes and the links so people will be able to get information. If you're interested in applying for the AI Manufacturing Award, that's on the AI Awards website, also AI Ireland. So all you have to do is stick that into Google or ChatGPT or Copilot, and you will find it as well. David, anything else?
I guess just to mention, I guess to get it in. So the next cohort will be starting on the 1st of October. Yes. It runs for 10 weeks. We'll take a break for midterm, so it will finish just before Christmas. It's a hybrid program, which means that you can attend in person, or we're obviously well aware of how time poor SMEs are, and you can attend virtually if you wish as well. The last cohort, we had companies in Blessington, in Clonmel, in the Northwest, in Dublin. So you don't have to physically attend there, but obviously there's additional value in mixing with the other companies on the course. It will run for the 10 weeks. It's, as I said, there's up to 80% funding for companies to do this. At the end of the 10 weeks, they hopefully leave a lot more informed with a plan and a roadmap and some clear next steps. And we certainly got exceptionally good feedback on the first cohort, so we're really excited to do this over again with a new set of companies.
David Bermingham, Director of AI at the AIM Centre, thank you very much for your time today.
Thanks, Mark. It's been great chatting to you.
At AI Ireland, we're helping over 1 million people become literate using artificial intelligence. And we do this in a variety of different ways. The easiest way is our AI literacy program, where we do a 60 to 90 minute program via virtual Zoom or Microsoft Teams, where we teach the rules of the road of AI, from basic business concepts to ethical and resourceful decisions on how you actually use AI every day. This is our literacy foundation. The second way we use AI training is within our workshops. These are either virtual or in-person workshops where executive leaders come and use some of the AI tools that we make available for them, that they can actually start to take their own documents and reimagine savings of time and energy, but taking away friction from the work that they do each day. Later on, we actually empower different departments, HR, finance, sales, marketing, operations, and start to utilize AI across relevant use cases to upskill their different types of departments. If you're interested and ready to go on your AI journey, we'll be able to showcase over 700 applications of applied AI about how you can actually stop reinventing the wheel and start using AI for your organization today. If you want to start out and find out a little bit about the golden thread of activities that we've got to allow you to start to utilize AI straight away, please feel free to reach out to us and we'll give you a good comprehensive overview about the arts of the possible, minus the hype, purely applied. See you then.